And now I'm pleased to introduce ecogerontologist and educator, Monica Eastway. Feel free to tell us more about yourself, Monica.
All right. Thank you so much. Jeff, thank you for the introduction. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody. Speaking of tapping, that sounds like a nice way to calm. I'm a little nervous. This is my first webinar, so I just appreciate everybody that's here, and I'm excited to share some of my favorite topics with you, which all connects to ecogerontology, which you'll be learning a little bit more about. So I think I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen here. Let's go to the beach, everybody. Let's start there. So go ahead and get comfortable in your chairs or your sofas, wherever you may be. And we're going to start with a little bit of green care. So get comfortable, a little guided meditation, and sit comfortable and just become aware of your breath. And gaze into this beautiful landscape, this beach, and really feel your feet. Maybe it's how they might feel in the sand, and what the sounds of the ocean may be. Maybe some smells that you might be smelling. And I'm going to ring a bell and then just do a little bit of guided breath meditation. So breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment. Wonderful moment. Okay. How do you feel? I feel a little more calm. So, okay. So this presentation, I'm going to guide us just thinking ahead that every little bit that I'm about to share is actually what would be a chapter in a book. So I've spent some time condensing everything into just short little nuggets as I can, but please know that it's all interconnected. So I'm going to give you just a brief overview of some urgent current social problems, an introduction to the ecogeneration park model, an overview of green care approaches, and kickstarting a green care movement, followed by some reflection and some questions and answers. Anything else you'd like to share throughout the presentation, please feel free to put into the chat, and I'm sure Jeff will be collecting those as well. So while I was in graduate school, I started graduate school for Master of Science in Gerontology in January of 2020. So right at the beginning of the global COVID-19 pandemic. And I returned to school to hone a new model of living in care called the ecogeneration park model. And during that time, I learned a statistic that maybe you have heard or maybe not, but that the fastest growing segment of our homeless population are people over the age of 65. And it is forecasted that their number is to triple by 2030. So in the next 5 to 7 years, tripling our homeless population of people over the age of 65. And as you know, younger and older Americans, people of all ages, are facing rapidly rising costs of food, housing, and healthcare. And many Americans are living one paycheck away from, or unexpected bill away from, experiencing homelessness. In addition, people living in rural areas, particularly older Americans, face unique challenges, not only with housing affordability and accessibility, but access to community services and medical care and supports that help them continue to age in place in their home of choice. And putting them on the edge of homelessness as well. And also, only about 4% of our current housing stock is accessible and livable for people with any kind of mobility impairments, and less than 1% are wheelchair accessible. So thinking ahead as our population continues to age. And you know, a healthy, thriving rural America really does support a healthy, thriving urban America. We're all interconnected. The rural landscapes account for 97% of our land mass, which is what nurtures and generates our water, our food production, energy, even recreation for all Americans, wherever you might live. Welcome to the eco revolution. Imagine for a moment solving some of our most pressing social and environmental. I forgot to mention that currently over 1 million plant and animal species are on the verge of extinction. So imagine for a moment solving some of these most pressing social and environmental problems simultaneously while generating sustainable revenue. This is the vision of the Eco-Generation Park model. A master plan that supports forever livable universal design homes, employment, entrepreneurship, food production, child and elder care, all encased in a nurturing green care community. And you'll learn a little bit more about what a green care community is and what green care is as we move on through the presentation. And the root of the Eco-Generation Park model is actually expands the Dutch care farm model from the Netherlands, which is an evidence-based model that nurtures multifunctional agriculture, biodiversity, and generating home for all our relations, people and plants and other species. And I discovered just fairly recently that the word eco actually is derived from the ancient Greek word oikos, which means home. And this is my passion. This is what eco-gerontology is creating and generating livable homes for all of us to thrive. So, well, identifying places where people live the longest, and you've probably heard of Dan Buettner's work with the blue zones. He discovered that in these blue zones, in these areas where elders live the longest, the healthiest, it wasn't because of pills or supplements or things, but it's actually that their actual environments nudge them into the right behaviors. They move around naturally about every 20 minutes. Their towns and villages and cities are designed for people, not cars. They walk everywhere. They have opportunities to walk to the farmer's market. They walk to the neighbor's house. They walk to church. They grow gardens. They knead bread. They grind corn, and they live with purpose and meaning, and not just activities and hobbies for their personal enjoyment, but meaning, which actually gives them a sense of responsibility, which they feel responsibility for their community, but also for future generations, what the Japanese call ikigai. And just recently, a few days ago, I discovered, and many of you might have heard of this, a study came out from the Barcelona Brain Health Initiative that showed for the first time that in healthy people, that purpose in life promotes resilience to brain damage caused naturally by aging, and also they identified differences in the functioning of brain networks between people with greater purpose of life, greater meaning in life, versus those with less purpose and meaning in their lives. And what they found was having this greater purpose in life, this ikigai, actually contributes to maintaining brain health and cognitive function as we age, promoting healthy aging. So you can see how that relates to, the lifestyles of people living in these blue zones. And last year in February, I read, and some of you might have as well, the UN Decade of Healthy Aging in a Climate Changing World. And that is really when I realized eco-gerontology has to be my focus moving forward, because nature's health and our ability to age optimally are 100% interconnected. And we have decades now of research showing the many benefits of green and blue spaces, including, gardens and biodiverse habitats, because they're associated, and research has shown, with healthy longevity, higher quality of life, brain health, and lowered risk of chronic conditions. And thinking back with those blue zones, that is another common denominator, is they have more access to biodiverse environments and green spaces and blue spaces, a lot of nature around them. It's a part of their life. Miles Richardson, he's a professor from the Nature Connectedness Research Group. And I love this quote: "There's no well-being without nature's well-being. Our well-being is 100% interconnected." Intergenerational. The eco-generation park model and green care communities are age integrated. We are starting to see a shift in traditional residential care communities that tend to be age segregated, including, nursing homes, assisted living, memory care. There's a rising movement towards integrating the ages. There's some assisted living, for example, communities that are integrating preschools, classrooms into the communities, and some universities offering co-housing programs, because there is so many benefits to that's a whole book on its own as well, of intergenerational relationships for promoting well-being, sense of belonging, resiliency during times of extraordinary change. This photo actually was taken up. This is my neighborhood and some of my neighbors in June of 2020, right in the heat of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it really did, bringing together, we erected the teepee, the lodge that I have in the yard. It really brought our community together in a cohesive way, and buffered a lot of the isolation and stress and uncertainty that our world was experiencing. So multiple generations and working and living and learning together does promote resiliency during these times of extraordinary change. And is at a root, one of the main principles of the eco-generation park model. Here are a couple of my other neighbors. These are the oldest residents where I live here in Big Sur, age 95 and 93. This is from our Earth Day fair that we had last year. Having value, to be valued, this is a human need that does not go away no matter what our age is. And this is often a need that isn't fully considered as a form of care quite yet. Yeah. So when we're thinking of nurturing and promoting livable communities and life and aging in our place of choice, what often isn't considered is the natural environment. And I want to showcase in this next slide here. This is from the AARP's website on Age Friendly. They have amazing resources there, but this is the 8 domains of livability. And as you can see, they cover, transportation, inclusion, health services, supports, housing. These are all the elements that do promote us to have the opportunity to age in place, in our place of choice, and prevent institutionalization and to stay connected to our communities, just like the blue zones. But what isn't really considered, and I've added this, is the natural environment. The impact of the natural environment that has on all of our ability to age optimally, whether we're in an urban area or in a rural area. And so that brings us to the green care. And as I said at the beginning, the root and the foundation of the eco-generation park model is grounded in multifunctional agriculture, the green care farm model. And this diagram is actually from a research study called Growing Well-Beings, the Benefits of Care Farms. And as you can see, compared to the 8 domains of livability, the care farm model includes, environmental, nature, horticulture, animals, multifunctional agriculture, society, community, family, social connection support, public health, economic, all in case. So it's taking those domains and adding this lens of the environment and that importance for all of our health and well-being. And so the green care farm movement started in the Netherlands in the 1990s as a way to make farms multifunctional and financially sustainable. And since then, from growing from 70 care farms, there are now over 1,400 care farms and a little over 400 social care farms in the UK, because the benefits have just been that extraordinary, and their number continues to grow. And the care farm and the growing movement of care farming, it supports people with multiple different various social and medical needs, including people living with dementia, depression, learning disabilities, people that are marginalized in society, could be work-related stress, the chronically unemployed. So a multiple of people get health care and care from the care farm. And I also want to come back to the ARP, because I just adding to what they're already promoting with these domains of livability. And if you go to their website, they have so many free resources, creating community gardens for people of all ages, and livability websites. So I really recommend, if you want to learn more about, embracing livable communities in your own neighborhood, that the ARP has amazing free resources. And I'm just adding to what they already offer. So there's here. And now here we are to green care. And so, as I mentioned earlier, eco-gerontology and the eco-generation park model is a green care community. So rooted in green care practices and approaches. So as you can see here in this diagram, green care is an umbrella term for multiple different approaches and range of activities that promote physical, psychological, social, and environmental health and well-being, and oftentimes simultaneously. Green care is practices are in areas of, they can happen in farms or patios or gardens. Nature is not a backdrop in green care. Nature is utilized and worked with to produce an effect. As I said, a physical, psychological, social, educational, environmental benefit. And we now have over 3 decades of research that showcases the endless benefits of green care. And as you can see, they can overlap nicely. So you can have multiple different approaches and practices happening at one location. For example, nature's arts and crafts, green exercise, care farming, environmental conservation could actually occur at the same location. And also, I want to note that the investments to run a green care programming and establish green care communities are minor compared to our current model, traditional medical care. And compared to clinical care, green care, like I said before, can positively influence our physiological, our psychological, our social, our environmental, and educational health and well-being, oftentimes simultaneously. And one of my favorite branches of green care approaches is companion animals, pets. Here's a photo of me and my dog in our dog walk group. Is we don't think of that as being a form of care as much, but research has shown that pets and companion animals have been shown to reduce, obviously, loneliness and isolation, but also stress, blood pressure, and also boosting our physical activity and meaningful engagement. So back to that ikigai, giving us meaning and purpose in life. I remember living with my great grandmother, and then when she eventually moved into a traditional nursing home, she no longer was able to have access to her gardens, but also no longer access to her dog, which that relationship, that companion, that was her whole meaning in life. And I think looking back, that was the most traumatic experience of losing her home, which she was very attached to the place and her gardens, but her dog, that was devastating. So the authors of the conceptual framework of green care have identified 6 core values of green care practices and approaches that showcase how nature benefits our health and well-being. And so you can see here, nature's important for human beings. Nature's often overlooked in modern living. As you see, not a lot of biodiversity in gardens, food production, and tending plants and animals does bring us solace. And that has also been proven. And a study conducted actually during COVID-19 found experiences in nature, like nature walks and bicycling, also known as green exercise, revealed 4 themes when they interviewed the participants aged 60 plus. And these 4 themes were enjoying the beauty of nature, being absorbed by the surroundings of nature, feeling connected to their bodies, and finding solace in the movement. The findings highlight the potential of green exercise and physical activity outdoors in nature to reduce social isolation while also improving our overall well-being. So if you want to get exercising, go outside, go to the local park, anywhere you can. You're going to get a lot more benefits from being out in nature and being in the trees than you would in a gym environment. And here's the other three values: the positive impacts on our health. Green care can help enhance current programs that are already in place. And the World Health Organization has recently said that our greatest source of health and well-being is from nature. Nature is our greatest source. And they say, the World Health Organization, that enhancing biodiversity is critical to a recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. And a lot of research has shown that nature and access to trees in particular reduce our rates of depression, lowers the stress hormone, the cortisol hormone, and also improves cognitive function. A study in Germany concluded that just living 100 meters from a tree has the ability to decrease the need for antidepressant drugs. And in Denmark, they recently found a study that showed that children that lived in very low levels of green space and trees had higher risk for developing psychiatric disorders later in life than children that have access to green spaces and access to nature. And then I found this really interesting, that recently a Harris poll survey commissioned by the Arbor Day Foundation found that 41% of Americans, only 41% of Americans, believe that trees can positively impact our mental well-being. So I thought that was pretty interesting here. So here's a wonderful infographic that I have, and any infographics that you see during this presentation, if you'd like to get one of them to print and put in your office or your home, I am very happy to share that. This is a collection of the results of several research studies on the benefits of green care approaches, all the different approaches that you saw in that graph earlier. As you can see, pretty much everybody benefits from care outdoors and green care, including small farms. That's the multifunctional agriculture. That's the care farming. It's not just benefiting us as humans, but it's benefiting the actual natural environment. So that's why I have Planet Earth on there. And as you can see, there are, green care, passive green care, and active green care. And so passive green care, as you see, meditation, sensory awareness, is very sensory. It's much slower. It's like that earlier meditation we did. We're at the beach. We're becoming aware of our breath, waking up our senses to the sights and the sound. So we're promoting relaxation and restoration. And then there's active green care. And so that's more physical, more hands-on, often more done more in groups. So that brings in that social connectivity, that human-to-human connection and human-to-nature connection. So healing gardens, green exercise, you're outdoors, and horticulture and caring for animals. And so as you can see, a lot of endless benefits of bringing care outdoors and care, nurturing green care approaches. And there's a lot going on here, but I want to go back to the care farms as well. And this is actually a photo here of a green care farm in the Netherlands, and some actual photos of people. They do have residential care farms, so where people actually live at the care farm permanently, and also day programs as well. And there's so many benefits, particularly for people living with dementia, with green care and green care farming, and also just accessing the natural world. And some of these evidence-based benefits for people living with dementia, and I will add their carers, their family and their care partners, again, everybody, is improved mental state. So reduced agitation, reduced stress, reduced anger, reduced apathy and depression, improved physical health, skin, fitness, sleep, nutrition, improved verbal expression, improved memory and attention, improved awareness of multisensory and joy, improved sense of well-being, independence, self-esteem, and improved social interaction and sense of belonging. And that's the sense of belonging and feeling like I'm part of something. I might be living with dementia, but we're focused on in Green Care what you still can do in integrating you into society and continuing to maintain these relationships with people and planet. A lot of the people living with dementia that have participated in Green Care farms and Green Care horticulture therapy and things like that have said, wow, I feel like I have some purpose. I love going. It's like I'm going to work. I'm volunteering. I'm part of a group that I'm not. It takes away that stigma we have. That's also been found with people with mental illness and things like that. It's a non-institutionalized environment. And so it does promote nurturing and continuing these important relationships and physical activity and connecting to the greater purpose of life and living. So everybody benefits from care outdoors. And I have here, you'll see person-centered care, which you've probably heard of, which is foundational. It's so important. So we're focusing on the individual, the values, strengths, preferences, strengths and abilities, not what you can no longer do, what can you still do and still learn. Lifelong learning is lifelong, no matter what's going on. And of course, the emotional, social needs of the individual. But with Green Care approaches and Green Care farming, what I love is it also expands person-centered care and promotes reciprocal shared care, what I call reciprocal shared care. So expands it. So you have not just the needs of the person, of the individual, but the needs of the carer, the needs of the community, the needs of, so the caregiver becomes care receiver becomes, it's reciprocal, caregiver. We all have a human need to give, not just always receive. So reciprocal shared care really opens the door for us to experience that. So nurturing that contribution and regeneration. You might have heard of regenerative agriculture and nurturing soil and how important soil health is for our health. So it expands that person-centered up to reciprocal shared care, because as we discussed, I mentioned earlier that our health and well-being is 100% interconnected with the health and being of our natural landscapes. And there's a lot of research that shows the benefits that people receive when they participate in restoration projects and actually improving habitats, so that's a whole nother area there of a book. And so, as I mentioned, eco-generation park model, eco-gerontology is really focused on, encompassing Green Care approaches into our day-to-day forms of care, but also how we design our care, our residential care facility communities, access to sunlight, window views of nature. There's a lot of, you've probably heard of attention restoration theory, right? There's a lot of research on, just gazing outside and seeing a chipmunk up in the tree impacts our health and well-being in such positive ways. Gardens, views of gardens, ponds, privacy, autonomy. All of this is a non-institutionalized environment. And these are design qualities of residential care farms in the Netherlands and Green Care communities. And while residential care homes in the United States often have outdoor spaces, they're often not utilized. Care generally isn't practiced in these outdoor spaces, and residents often, particularly in memory care, are able to access some of these outdoor areas without aid. And as you've probably heard, the staffing shortage and things like this. So it's not a priority to get people outdoors and engaging, even though, we have, all this research and a lot of what I've showcased, that's 3 decades of, and I've only given a little tiny bit of what is out there. It's still not quite valued here in the United States to the extent that I'm hoping to help shift and move. So that brings me to how do we start a green care movement? And how do we get to, eco-generation park model of living in care, that eventually this institutionalized model, this outdated model, will be replaced by? And I've struggled with that question a lot recently, because, this is the big vision, of course, is what we're always, that big purpose, meaning that's my ikage. Like, okay, baby steps, eco-conscious steps, how do we do it? And one of the ways is nurturing and growing nature connectedness. And according to the Nature Connectedness Research Group out of Derby University, nature connectedness is a measurable psychological construct that moves beyond just contact with nature to how an individual's sense of their belonging and relationship to nature. And there are a lot of benefits to nurturing nature connectedness, not only for our health and well-being, but the health and well-being of nature. So basically, a strong connection to nature means feeling a kinship with nature. I mean, do you ever think about, do you feel a kinship with the trees and the plants and the birds and the bees? Not everybody does, but I certainly do. And so with the pathways to nature connectedness, these are actually evidence-based pathways in the last 10 years of their research that they found that grows and nurtures nature connectedness. So again, going through those senses, some passive green care, tuning into nature when you're outdoors, what do you smell? What do you see? Really honing in on the nature. And I've lived in the city. I live in a very biodiverse area now, but I lived 15 years in Cleveland, Ohio, in Toledo, and there is nature all around us. It really does start with awakening our senses. They also found that attuning to the emotions that nature brings to us has multiple benefits on our health, but also connects us deeper. So thinking about like that, going back to that beach scene at the beginning of our presentation, what kind of emotions do you feel when you're relaxing at the beach or you're gardening and things like? Just start becoming aware of those emotions and feelings that you have in nature, noticing nature's beauty. And back to ikage, back to meaning and purpose. Nature does bring meaning to our lives, which grows into compassion. So when we have a deeper connection with nature, we have a kinship with nature, we are more likely to care for nature and take care of nature as though care, is as we do our own families, because, not caring for nature is like not caring for our relatives. And so research has also shown that people with high levels of nature connectedness are happier, they're less stressed, they have more vitality, more meaning. They have more calm, more creativity, joy. They have more ikage, so they have their purpose is just not just hobbies, activities, but they have a wider, a greater connection to the wider world around us. Are more focused, are able to concentrate, and they're less lonely. So we hear a lot about social connectedness and how important that is for our health and well-being, something that's really been highlighted since the COVID-19 pandemic. But what often isn't included in that, it's human to human connections, but also our human to nature connections. So there's a lot of research that shows that also provides us with social connectedness. And I've summed these up in what I call unearthing the 5 A's, a very simple framework to remember. Awareness, awe, appreciation activates action. Again, going back to that awareness, immersing in nature wherever you can, whenever you can, waking up your senses. And awe, I see that you recently had a webinar on the science of awe. That's a large part of my research and practice as well. That's another several books. And one of my favorite quotes is, "The world is full of magic things, patiently awaiting for our senses to grow sharper." William Butler Yeats, what I call sensations of boundless wonderment. And researchers actually define awe as a positive emotion people feel when they are in the presence of something they cannot immediately explain. And that's one of the benefits of nature and immersing ourselves in nature, is experiencing and really seeking out what do you notice that does give you a sense of awe and curiosity. It could be the bark It could even be the clouds in the sky or the way the shadows of the light and the trees are putting on the path. I mean, I take an all walk every morning, and each time I notice things on the same walk that I never noticed before. And it's incredible because I thought, going into this, that I'm one of the most nature connected people there could be. I grew up in northern Michigan in the forest, nature all me, but practicing these evidence-based pathways to nature connectedness, nurturing that and awareness, awe in my own landscapes, it's growing, and it's awesome, because then I'm also noticing plants and things that I'm actually taking time to really, and then I go home and I go, I want to learn more about this particular species, and what's this all about, that I never would have really paid attention to. So that's where it benefits not only my health, but nature's health. Is this a native plant? Is it an invasive plant? These kinds of things. What is going on in my bioregion? Because all of that impacts my health, the health of our community, the health of our towns and our cities. You've heard of the term think locally, act globally, all of that at these times of extraordinary change. So awareness, awe, activates also appreciation. So, you start engaging more and starting becoming more aware and feeling, you start having a deeper appreciation for the natural world, love and deep gratitude, what you feel for your own family, because that activates connection and care. Action. So awareness, awe, appreciation activates action, building accessibility, making sure that children and elders that are living in environments where they're not able to get outdoors, or they don't have a lot of trees and parks around them, let's get to action. We want to ensure that everybody has access to nature, and we're going to preserve and restore nature, because we are nature. So care outdoors. So simple yet profound. This is, part of my plan to, generate a green care movement across the country, across the nation, and with simple yet profound ways. It is just a matter of, you don't have to go to a horticulture therapist or find a green care farm. You can start right now today with just going, really start, understanding our outdoor spaces as places of care. Simple yet profound, whether you're exercising outdoors or you're going to go sit outside and enjoy a book and you notice a bird up the tree, really taking moments to enjoy that. And as you can see at the bottom picture here, this is traditionally where care is practiced indoors. We have exercise inside, but moving that up so that we're going and using these outdoor spaces more to promote health and well-being for all of us, for throughout our lifespan, but also for carers. Everybody benefits. And you've probably heard of medication managers. I vision a world where we have eventually care outdoors managers, people that are trained or even volunteers in some of these green care approaches, simple yet profound ways to engage each other and nurture and ensure all of us are getting outside, because we all benefit. And then, of course, it benefits our planet as well, our shared home. And also feeds ikigai, greater purpose and meaning. So really starting to think of, being outdoors, sharing care outdoors, engaging with our plants and animals as an actual form of care, for self-care and for the care that we share. And as I said at the beginning, I've given you a little bit of a lot of information that I have, and it is a book, chapters, and I do have a book, Breathe Deep and Be Happy, an introduction to sharing care outdoors. If you're interested in learning more, it's an ebook. It's filled with 3 chapters. So the dire need for care outdoors, green care approaches, and unearthing the 5 A's. And I go in depth of what I presented today. And I love this infographic. It's one of my favorites, because this really is, the research all shows this, our brains on nature, your serotonin flows, our dopamine flows. You can get some of this from a bag of chips or certain things, but this is so much better for all of us and for our environment. And I also have an online course, because as I said, let's generate a care outdoors movement. Let's start sharing this knowledge, these evidence-based tools to nurture all of our health and the health and well-being of our natural environments, because that takes our ikigai, our purpose and our meaning, to expands it to such a great purpose. So there's my email, my website. And yeah, so thank you so much. And one last slide. This is last week I was sitting having my little care outdoors time with my coffee and my breakfast, and I looked up because I'm practicing unearthing the 5 A's, so awareness, and look up, and the awe moment. This is a Pacific Slope flycatcher and her little baby here. And this is the second year in a row that the family has come to the same nest up where I live. And there's a lot of research also I didn't have time to cover on birds and bird songs and just seeing our little feathered friends. So I just wanted to share that with you. So yeah, so thank you very much for listening to this, my presentation. And I hope I didn't speak too fast. I'm a little nervous, had a little technical difficulties at the beginning. But
thanks so
so
much.
thank you.
Yeah, we did have a couple of questions. One was, what can an individual do to attain all that you mentioned? And a little more about the how-to from the same person.
Oh, absolutely. To start getting some of these amazing benefits of the nature experience. Absolutely. We can go back to, that's this simple framework, in my course, and also in my ebook, I do a practice, an environmental scan, starting with, where you are currently living, like right in your house. So when you're this evening or tomorrow, or a couple of days, start looking out your windows to see what views sheds do you currently have to the natural world. I mean, it could be a tree or maybe your garden, any kind of landscape view shed you have from the indoors of your home, and then your outdoors of your home. And there might be spaces outside of your home environment that maybe you're not currently utilizing. So maybe start engaging in those spaces, or maybe think, maybe I'll put a bird bath over here to encourage some of our feathered friends to come, nurturing that environment, and just and then in your own community, if you don't have a lot of nature where you currently are, look up where are some of your local parks. I also just finished a series of all walking with my local park, our park system here. So a lot of parks right now, especially summertime, have really great programs from restoration to walking and nature walks, or maybe even get to know some of your neighbors too. Like, hey, how are you engaging outdoors? Or do we have a community garden? If not, like I mentioned earlier, the ARP has some great resources on how to get a community garden going, and things like that. So I hope that helped a little bit. And just keep it simple, Smarty. Just start engaging and noticing nature more, when you can. I mean, I don't know, Jeff, how about you? How about you where you are? I mean, do you engage a lot, or do you notice? Do you go outdoors for your walks or exercise? Or
Yeah, walking is like a key ingredient for exercise, not just going to the gym, but actually walking outside. And
yeah,
because I'm in the Northeast,
yeah.
it's easier to walk kind of in the, the late spring, the summer, and the early fall,
Easier because it's
Yeah.
colder.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah,
then another question was, what was the statistic about the 41% of people don't see that trees help your mental health?
yeah. 41% of Americans in the study put in a survey put out by the Arbor Foundation, the Harris poll. 41%, actually, no, only 41%. So that would be, 50 some percent of Americans don't think that trees can improve our mental health and well-being. So, which I thought that
But
was really interesting too.
but the fact is that it 100% does.
150%. And our mental health and well-being, there's a lot of heat waves happening across the country, right? The trees also provide shade and nurture biodiversity. So impacts not only our mental health and well-being, but our physical health and well-being. They help filter out the air and, clean our air and things like that. So many benefits, endless actually. Yeah. I thought that
Wow.
was interesting too. Yeah. And there's a lot of other, I had to there's so much I wanted to share, but there is a lot that, essentially we have become less connected to nature, particularly the last, 50 years or so. And of course, technology is bringing us even further disconnected. And one of my favorite quotes, Richard Louv, is the more high tech we become, the more nature we need, and it's like we're getting so tech focused that we're leaving out our nature connectedness. And, there's so many benefits, and particularly also in the aging world. I've noticed a lot of, aging in tech, it's tech focused and this, that, but this other bit, nature and the human nature connection is rarely, if ever, that I see it discussed as an important element for aging well, living well, at all ages of our lifespan. So I think that's another reason I'm really dedicated to focusing on, environment, our natural environments. I'm an environmental gerontologist, so it's not just, of course, our physical, our human built environments, our homes, our communities, our access to transportation. All of these things are so important for our ability to live good, well lives. But what's missing is that connectedness to nature and our natural resources and trees and birds, and that at the end of the day, what is the one home that we all share?
And
Sure.
here's a question. Do you have a newsletter people can subscribe to so we can follow your work?
Yes, I do. So if you go back, you go to my website and I have a contact link. So it's monicaeastway.com. And send me an email. And I do have a bi-monthly newsletter and also if you send me an email with that, I'll give you a link to the ebook as well. And I also wanted to note that and the research that I shared and some of the resources today and some of the other things that I've collected for this presentation, I have a document. So if you would like to receive that and be like, I want to look more into this Arbor Foundation study and things like that, send me an email and I'll send you the information that I have. So I'm all about education and sharing resources. Yeah.
Oh, great. Monica said lots of great info came at the right time for me.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad.
And another question, do you think the green care community model practice in the Netherlands would work in the United States?
Absolutely. Of course, it's going to be a little different. Their healthcare system set up differently. But what's interesting is even with the care farms there, some of them aren't yet associated with their health ministry because they're also, I'm an ambassador with the Nature for Health Network out of the Netherlands, and they are also right now working towards getting their government to fund these programs because that's, one of the issues they're facing. So obviously here, we don't really focus and fund prevention as much, particularly something like this. And so that's why here in the States, the model we'll utilize, but we'll have to tweak, right? But what Jan Hasnick, he's one of the lead researchers in care farm movement for the past 3 decades. What he found are the most successful green care farms in the Netherlands. They're the most successful and sustainable because of an entrepreneurial spirit that they have, a connection they have to their communities and to the people. And so here in the States, it's, generating a green care movement, generating green care communities. It's really going to happen in a grassroots level. But I don't think it's impossible. I think we are so ready for it. There's a lot of farms, for example, in the United States that are trying to figure out ways to become more financially sustainable. So multifunctional agriculture, agritourism, green care farming programs, this helps them sustain their farms well. Ikagi, again, what a greater good purpose, right? Of really nurturing all our communities, rural communities, and urban communities, right? So then if you're living in an urban area, Jeff, where you might be, say, hey, I'm going a half-hour drive to the country and going to harvest some great food from the regenerative farm and take a class and maybe dig in the dirt for a little bit, and get your green care.
So we should take a little time to get out of the urban environment and go drive an hour, west or whatever, to a farm. Or for those of us that are urban bound, yeah. What do New York Central Park, pocket parks Yeah,
Pocket
I
parks, yeah,
guess.
pocket communities. I think you have a lot of community gardens too, and maybe go check them out and say, hey, are you guys doing some of these other things, and just being in those environments, maybe some arts and crafts, maybe there's other things you're interested in that gets you there and connecting with the community that's running these movements. And I think Central, did you say your park there? I'm pretty sure they have all walking and nature groups and things like that as well. So you can start meeting up with more people, and you might say, hey, I know someone that's got a farm on the city, and there you go,
Yeah, and the
endless
way you
possibilities.
mentioned the way these communities work is that there are residents who live there of all ages, uh, people even with dementia who are helping with the farming, the botany, the plants, the animals, and then the people that can come in for a day or volunteer for a few hours. Is that the way it works? Did I capture
Absolutely.
that?
You
Mhm.
absolutely captured it. And so the care farms in the Netherlands, for example, since the 1990s, some of them have residential care farms. So their people live there permanently. And I'm not sure, I don't think, and not that I found, they're not quite, see, the eco-generation park model expands even what they're currently doing to include the carers actually live on property in the eco-generation park model. In the residential care farm model in the Netherlands, I don't think that the carers actually live on the property yet. So that would be a difference. But a lot of them also have day programs. So some of the care farms don't have residential, but they have day programs for all ages, all abilities, and things like that. So absolutely. So you can see a lot of potential here in the United States with 97% of our land mass in rural areas, potential to help support our urban areas, but also supporting what you might not think of farms, supporting housing, affordable housing, not just food production, but education and care. Yeah. And environmental restoration. What
I
they think
had
of.
seen something not necessarily along these lines, but it's in the Netherlands. It's like a small city uh, for um, that's only populated by dementia, you know, care receivers and their caregivers, and it's just like laid out like a regular city. It has restaurants, it has shops, and people just go about their daily business, going food shopping, going to restaurants, going to the library, doing this, doing that in this city. Here's
Yeah.
two questions. Most in-home Most in-care home residents are dependent on what the government funding will pay for here in the United States. Just to get a person out of their bed and getting air outside is difficult in these understaffed environment. So she's curious, how can we battle this?
Absolutely. And that's something that I've been working on, and a solution that I have, and I'm sure, as we co-create more, is generating that care outdoors movement. And I actually am working on with some of our youth right now and training them to be volunteer care outdoors leaders. So they'll take my programming, my coursework, ages 7 and up, get their care outdoors leader certificate, and then they can be able to start helping bring care outdoors to not only people living in residential communities, nursing homes, but maybe their neighbors that are aging in place outside and things. And really, I feel like really to generate this movement, it is a focus also on our youth, because they are the future carers of people and planet. And if we can get the youth excited about green care and train them into care outdoors leaders, in 5-10 years, they're going to be our future executive directors of our care homes, and they're going to look a lot different. So thank
Great.
you. It's a great question. And it's
Yeah.
one that I really, when I first graduated and started getting involved with this, most all of this research, by the way, wasn't what I learned in graduate school for Master of Science in Gerontology in 2020 to 2022. It was from my own independent research. And so, generating this movement, it's been more challenging than I initially anticipated. But again, ikagai, it's my purpose. So I am 100% dedicated.
If I see one more Q&A, Perhaps you can approach Girl and Boy Scouts to be involved.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, that's a wonderful idea. I reached out to the Boys and Girls Club, but the Girl Scouts, I think that's excellent. Thank you. I'm writing that down.
Oh,
It'd be great. And give them, all ages need a Ikigai, right? I don't know if
that's
I'm
right.
pronouncing that right.
Ikigai?
Ikigai. I keep saying I get excited. It's a fun word.
Yeah. So thanks again for joining us. One more Q&A, and then I guess we can close. Yay, great webinar. Yes.
Oh, good.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much. Talk about tapping, Woo.
All right. Well, good night,
All right.
everyone. That was
Yeah, give ourselves
wonderful.
a clap. Thank you, everybody. And a tap. And this is one of the things I do with kids and adults. And a pat on the back. And then a good hearty laugh.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
Okay.
for being here.
Thank you. Great hearing you. Okay.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.